Okay, good evening, Bio 202 students. Today we're going to talk about the male reproductive system as part of our focus session series. This will be the second and last focus session before we hit the final focus session for the female reproductive system. Okay, so for this session, going to very briefly talk about male anatomy and physiology, and then talk about basically spermatogenesis. Male reproductive is not as complicated as female reproductive is. So most of this is not going to be anything too crazy. Biggest things to focus on as you prepare for your exam are the functions and the primary and secondary organs of both the female and male reproductive systems. Also, look at the homologous structures, so things that are very similar in function between the male and female. And that all stems from the fact that our sex organs all look the same during embryonic development, um, until a certain point where either the body will produce more estrogen and suppress testosterone, or the body will suppress estrogen and increase testosterone. And the presence of estrogen or testosterone in the higher doses is what ultimately starts forming your sex organs into the male sex organs or the female sex organs. So for male, the functions of the male reproductive system are to produce sperm and sex hormones and to deliver the sperm. Organs are broken up between the primary and secondary organs. For the primary organs, we're primarily focused on the organ that makes the gamete. And so for us, it's either the sperm or the egg. So for males, the primary sex organ is the testes, and the secondary organs are the organs that are necessary to deliver the sperm to the female reproductive system to help in the quest to basically, fertilize an egg and ultimately make a baby. The purpose of the reproductive system, it's not necessary for our survival. And what I mean by ours is our personal survival. We can have our reproductive organs removed, and our bodies and our lives will still move on. We can survive without them. There's no other organ in the body that you can do that with and survive. Things like lungs and kidneys. If you take out the reproductive system, you're okay. But if you take out the urinary system, digestive system, cardiovascular system, will usually die. But this system is very vital for the continuation of the human species. Um, and the secondary organs for this system, essentially, it's everything that is involved with getting the sperm all the way to meet the egg and cause fertilization. And that includes your ducts, the glands, and then the penis itself. So what you want to study for is know your functions, so what the glands produce. Look at things like thermoregulation. We kind of talked about two ways that the male reproductive system can keep the testes at an optimal temperature. And also know tracing of the ducts. I do recall we had a question in class where we talked about, tracing the flow path of sperm from the testes all the way out the penis. So what is semen? We typically tend to use the word semen and sperm fairly interchangeably. But biologically speaking, sperm is just one component of semen. It's actually a combination of multiple fluids produced by the male reproductive system. The primary one is obviously sperm that's produced in the testes, and that's holds the genetic material necessary to help create the baby. You have fructose and fibrinogen and prostaglandins. Those are all produced in the seminal vesicles. Fructose is the energy source of the for the sperm to help it make its journey. Fibrinogen, this makes sperm sticky. So sperm will typically be able to last in a female's uterus for anywhere between 5 to 6 days. And they're able to do that because the fibrinogen allows it to kind of stay in place. The whole purpose is to maximize the chance that one of the sperm will meet with an egg to cause a fertilization event, and fibrinogen allows it to survive and stick in the female reproductive system longer. And then prostaglandins, those are essentially hormones, chemicals that help females with contraction. Um, in nature, it's not necessarily the best idea to have sexual intercourse for a long period of time. You're fairly vulnerable to predators, things like that in nature. And so the whole idea of the semen in this case is to maximize the survivability of the sperm in the female while trying to deliver it in as quick of a way as possible. So prostaglandins, they help stimulate the female contraction. Um, if you want to, view it this way, it is essentially trying to increase I'll just use the word grip, the grip on the penis. And so that gives it better stimulation on the male side, and that ultimately allows the male to ejaculate faster to get the sperm or the semen out, and then they can stop sexual reproduction or sexual intercourse and put themselves in a better situation. Not something that we see much here in our first world country, where we have those kind of threats, but think about the evolution of our sex organs, and they were evolved in a world where we did not have homes, we were out in the open. And so the system had to be very quick and efficient so that it could deliver what it needed to get done, and then uh, the male and female could then be in a safer position. You have prostatic fluid, which is made by the prostate gland. This just adds volume, adds about 30% of the volume in the semen, sometimes upwards of 50%. And then you have pre-ejaculatory fluid. This is in the bulbourethral gland. Um, and essentially the purpose of the pre-ejaculatory fluid, it's been, it is I would say, what's the word I'm looking for? A common term or something you'll see said a lot is things like pre-cum. Essentially, that's what pre-ejaculatory fluid is. It's just an alkaline substance. Remember that for males, both urine and semen go out the same ducts or the same pathways. And so the bulbourethral gland will provide an alkaline solution that helps essentially clean and neutralize the male urethra. Um, and also, it is an alkaline solution that helps neutralize vaginal acids, again, to help the sperm ultimately survive in the hostile female reproductive system and eventually make it to meet the egg for fertilization. And then here we have our testes, our primary sex organ, or our primary organ for the male. There are multiple different cells involved in this. First one is the sustentacular cells, or the Sertoli cells, they were formerly called. These are also considered nurse cells, and they form the blood testes barrier. So going back to your immune system, recall that our body is able to um, develop a sense of self and at the cellular level. And so our cells know what our cells should look like. And the immune system is able to find cells that do not look like the cells we have. Think about sperm cells. They are haploid, so they have half the amount of chromosomes that our normal cells do. So to the immune system, they are a foreign invader. Without this blood testes barrier, the male immune system would in fact attack the sperm cells, and obviously we can't allow that since that will not ultimately help us with reproduction and continuation of the human species. We also have Leydig or interstitial cells. These cells primarily produce testosterone in the male, and they are triggered by the release of luteinizing hormone. And then we also have spermatogenic cells. These cells are the ones that make the sperm, and they are triggered by follicle stimulating hormone. So one of the questions that could be asked on your exam that I would consider studying is how does sperm form and how does it leave the seminiferous tubules? We had a great question asked in one of our lectures, essentially asking, when a male ejaculates, wouldn't the immune system attack that? And that was a very good question. It was kind of a thought-provoking question. And all seriousness, kind of like I mentioned in the slide before, um, the male wants, or the body wants to deliver the sperm or the semen out as fast as possible. So because it does it so quickly, the immune system does not have enough time to recognize that those sperm cells are in fact foreign. And so the body doesn't really pay attention to that portion of it. In theory, if we talked about theory, if there was any sperm cells left over inside the ducts, in theory, your immune system would in fact attack it. But for the most part, by the time the male urinates post having sexual intercourse, those typically would get flushed out, and the acids in the urine would potentially destroy or damage those sperm cells anyway. Okay, and I believe this is the last chunk, spermatogenesis. So this is the formation of our sperm cells. Biologically speaking, males can continue to produce sperm until very well into late age, sometimes even upwards till death, whereas females produce a set amount of eggs during embryonic development, and then they'll slowly lose eggs over time. And once a female is at childbearing age or at child rearing age, the you'll go through the menstrual cycle and you'll lose anywhere between 15 to 20 eggs per cycle until the female eventually reaches menopause, and then the egg production and egg release ceases to function. So for the males, they undergo essentially mitosis. So there are a series of cells that will reproduce and make a copy of themselves, and then that one of those copies will stay with the male outside of the testes, and then the other copy will go into the testes, and then that'll start dividing the DNA, and eventually will make four sperms. So one uh, primordial germ cell will divide. The copy will divide via mitosis, again making a copy of itself. That copy will then make its way into the testes, and it'll start meiotic division to make another copy of itself, and then it'll start splitting the chromosome, and eventually get to the point where that one um, cell will make four sperm cells. Terms to note are the types of cells. So a type A cell is the cell that I'm talking about that stays outside of the blood testes barrier and just continues to make copies of itself. And then the type B cell uh, is the cell that will eventually split off into four mature sperm cells. Once these sperm cells start dividing, they'll undergo what's called meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. At first, you can kind of see here on the right, the sperm cells will start splitting into two with certain amount of chromosomes, and they'll divide, or sorry, down here, meiotic division 1. So it'll divide, you'll have about half the number of chromosomes. You'll do another division and split the chromosome again. And then what happens at this point, you have spermatids, which are essentially sperm without the tails. Um, and then once the four spermatids are created during meiotic division 2, the spermatids will lose the cytoplasm and they'll grow tails. and they're at that point referred to as spermatozoa. These sperm cells, kind of you can kind of see here where the head is at the the wall of the lumen and the tails develop outside. At that point, the once the sperm cell is a mature sperm cell, it'll be released into the lumen and it'll make its way into the testes and it'll make its way into the epididymis. And then in the epididymis, it'll be stored and it'll wait for the right signals to essentially cause ejaculation. And then that sperm will eventually meet the rest of the semen fluids to then make its way into the female reproductive system. Okay, that's really all I had for this one. Like I said, it's nothing too complicated. Like I said, focus primarily on the functions of the male reproductive system. What are the primary and secondary organs? Take a look at the development of semen. Everything on that list that I showed you all here is something good to study for the tests, primarily what makes up semen and what are the functions of the different parts of semen. Those are all good questions that you can be asked on the exam. Another thing to note is the sperm. Basically, sperm is essentially made up of three pieces. You've got the tail or the flagella. You've got the middle zone, which is essentially a power plant. It's essentially mitochondria for the sperm. And then you've got the head slash the acrosome, which holds the DNA and also has chemicals that help break down essentially the barriers of the egg to allow for the one of the sperm to eventually release its genetic material into an egg to then cause fertilization. I'll continue to talk on the female reproductive system in a different unit, but other than that, have a good rest of your night. For this one, for the focus session main question, I want you to just um, give me the flow path of sperm from, let's just say from the epididymis. Actually, no, let's say from the lumen to out of the body. I think we've done epididymis out of the body already a few times in class. So let's do from the lumen to outside of the body. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of your night and reach out if you have any questions.